Welcome to Parents Make a Difference. I'm your host, Josie PV. If your child came up to you and said, I want to become an international rapper, I want to become a musician, what would you say? What are your thoughts? What are you thinking? Well, Guinness World Record setting rap artist D.O Gibson defies the odds of becoming an international artist from Canada. He is also a successful record label executive. He's a motivational speaker. He's an author. And I'm excited to have him here talking to us about his journey. Welcome, Dio. How are you?
Oh yeah, I'm doing great. Thank you for having me.
My pleasure. I'm so excited to have our parents hear your story. I mean, you had a chance to come out to the school that I'm at, and I just loved the way you were trying to rise the level of thinking of our students, of our youth. Amazing, amazing. You've already had such great success. You've been on Much Music. You've been on YTV, MTV. I understand you've been on many shows, CBC,
Yeah.
E-Talk, and a whole bunch more there. Amazing. That's wonderful. How did you, or do you recall one moment that you thought, wow, this actually happened? My dream came true.
Well, I think there's several of them, to be honest with you, because in my book, I wrote a second book called On This Grind: Life Lessons Learned from the Music Industry. And what I call them are made it moments. So just moments in your life where you have that feeling like, oh, I made it. Because that's such a big term in the music business, especially to make it. And that has changed so much over the last 20 plus years that I've been a professional artist. So, um, I think about being in New York City and going to Def Jam Records and being on MTV was a big moment. It was a made it moment. Or performing in Singapore was with my friends, because that's the cool thing about music is oftentimes you are with people that are your friends that you work with. So being there or being in Amsterdam. So for me, a lot of it is always the travel. I really appreciate being able to perform in different cities and countries around the world because it just makes you realize how far that music can take you. So I definitely think it's those international performances.
That's wonderful. What on this journey, what kind of struggles did you go through? Because people think they just see the end product. They're like, "Oh yeah, but he had some breaks, he made it. That's not me." What kind of struggles did you go through?
Well, I find it interesting. Anytime I come to a school, I talk about what people used to say to me when I wanted to be a rapper. Like, do my friends encourage me? And some of them did. But the most common thing I hear is, you can't be a rapper. You're from Canada.
Hmm.
And it's funny because I've told that same story for 20 years. And 10, 15 years ago, people would laugh because they would understand what it means. Whereas nowadays, kids are like, what are you talking about? Like Drake's a rapper from Toronto. So my point with that is the music business has changed so much where saying you're Canadian could be a good thing now because we have somebody like Drake. But I remember starting out that I really realized there wasn't an infrastructure to the music business in Canada for hip hop. And while we have so many iconic singers from Canada, most of them aren't in hip hop and most of them aren't black. And what that taught me was the struggle was learning the music business. So realizing I'm not going to get a manager because there really aren't managers for hip hop. So I have to manage myself. There's not a booking agent for hip hop. So I've got to book venues for myself. I don't know how to find a publicist. So I've got to be my own publicist. So the struggle was really learning the music business part. But I think the upside of that is that's what really gives you longevity, because I saw a few friends get signed to a record deal per se, and when that didn't go well in the long term, like maybe it lasted for a year or two, but they kind of didn't know what to do because they hadn't learned those other roles of the business. So I'm grateful that I had to learn firsthand how to navigate through it.
How did you help yourself to put you on that mindset? Because I mean, a lot of people would give up, right?
Mm.
What advice would you give? Because, you know, maybe sharing some of your strategies on how you tried to push through the obstacles that you kept coming by, kept working through.
Well, I think the great thing about hip hop music and the reason why I love it is because it's a lot of your personal story. So when you're growing up listening to rap, you're listening to Jay Z because you're hearing Jay Z's story. And Jay Z's story, when he was coming up and throughout his career, it was kind of like nobody believed in me. I went to all these record labels, everybody turned me down. And I saw that firsthand with Drake, seeing him get turned down from record labels in Canada. So the cool thing with hip hop is you're hearing that, but you're also kind of creating your own story of how you want to do it. And so for me, what I learned early in my career was the grant system in Canada because I realized I didn't need a record label per se, but if I got a grant from Foundation to Assist Canadian Talent on Records, Factor, for my demo, well, now I have a few $1,000s. I can go to a professional studio. Oh, I can apply for an album because I've gotten a grant. And if I sell 2,000 copies of my album, I can get marketing, I can get touring. And what that really taught me was it kind of gave me a blueprint of the next step because I was trying to figure it out myself. But I figured if I can sell these copies, then I can move on to that next step. How do I sell these copies? I approach a friend and go on tour opening up for them and getting venue owners to sign that I sold as many at the venue. And I just realized it was really step by step as opposed to a kind of a common misbelief in the music industry, which is you're going to get discovered or overnight one song is going to go viral, right? So I'm glad that I stuck to a method.
Now, a lot of people would have given up at that point, but it sounds like you opened your mind to different possibilities. You sounded like you were hungry, hungry to
Yeah,
achieve.
you got to be hungry, but I mean, I think it's always important to enjoy the journey because like at those times I would just get a glimpse of maybe this is working. So whether it's opening up for classified on the road and selling CDs at after the show, I'm not making a lot of money, but I'm starting to see, oh, this is working, and getting my music video on Much Music. Like it wasn't the number one song, but it's getting played on Much Music. That gives me encouragement to come out with another one. So I'm glad that like I appreciated those moments because those I think it's what really propels you to keep on moving forward. That when I look at my career, I can just see a lot of building blocks of going from here to there, but they all kind of led myself in a pattern. And I think that's what you want um, as a musician is to be able to have a career. You don't want to just, I do it in some of my shows. I call it being a one hit wonder because that exists in music, but it exists in life too, where you could be popular for 1 minute, but is that what you really want? Because I think most people would say that, I'd prefer the longevity as opposed to just being known for one thing.
Who were role models in your life?
Well, it's funny when I just mentioned that because Maestro Fresh West is definitely a role model to me, being the first big Canadian rapper. And it's cool that he's going into Canada's Music Hall of Fame.
Hmm.
But I have a personal connection with him, a relationship we've developed for over 20 years now. And I think it's cool because he's exactly 10 years older than me. And why that's helpful is because there was no generation of 40-year-old rappers 15 years ago. You had rappers say, like, if I'm rapping when I'm 40, like, my goodness, that's a terrible thing. But now you've seen the genre, really grow up where people will spend money to go to a Nas concert or a Wu Tang. And Maestro Fresh West's career is an example of that as somebody who's in his mid 50s, but now he's being honored at Canada's Music Hall of Fame in a few weeks at the Junos. And as he says on his song "Stick to Your Vision," he's seen a lot of valleys and a lot of peaks. And it's a great metaphor for the music business, but an entrepreneur's life, a parent's life, anyone's life, that you're going to go through some tough times. You're going to have some good things, but sometimes you hear that voice saying, stick to your vision.
Your parents, were they influential in any way on this journey?
Yeah, definitely. It was great having parents that would encourage my dreams, because sometimes you have parents that just are like, no, you're not going to be a rapper. What do you mean? Um, but my parents would take me to concerts. So my dad would take me to DJ Jazzy Jeff and the Fresh Prince, or Naughty by Nature. And so to little things like going to the hip hop shop, which is in Detroit, Michigan. And if you know Detroit, it's not always like safest place. And this is a kind of downtrodden area back when we just had maps, not on a GPS on your phone. It's kind of like you don't want to make the wrong turn when you're there. But that's where Eminem got his start. So going and seeing places like that in the culture were a great way of just supporting my dream. And I think the good thing was that my parents always valued education. And so it wasn't about going to school to quote unquote be a rapper. But when I mentioned grants, I feel that I'm able to write grants well because of having that education, of being able to communicate your ideas, which is something that a college or university education can give you.
I understand you got a degree, or you had a major in English. Is that my
Hmm.
correct?
That's right.
I'm an alumni. We both attended York,
There we go.
York University. There's greatness coming out of everywhere. I know some people they'll say, "Oh, but I want to go to this university or that." But you know what? You have to find the greatness within. You can go anywhere and you'll find that greatness, and you can make it shine. So it sounds like,
For
it
sure.
wouldn't have mattered what university you went to.
Well, I find in Canada, a lot of universities are pretty similar. Whereas when you talk about America, like there's your Harvards, or like it's a little bit more widespread. But for me, it was really about coming to Toronto, and because I grew up in Sarnia, Ontario, so coming to Toronto was a big thing for me, and York was the destination.
Well, I loved York. York was a great university for me, so I have
Mhm.
nothing negative to say about that. I heard you spoke at Harvard. You did.
Yeah. Speaking of Harvard, yeah, it was cool to be invited to an event there, because I worked with the hip hop church, and the organizer of it was getting recognized for his efforts with the hip hop church and himself. And so it was nice to get the call from Harvard, and a check from Harvard, because with schools like that, you usually pay them. So it was cool to have the honor to come there and perform.
Yeah, that was wonderful. What now that you had this success that you've had so far, I'm sure more is to come.
Mm.
You're also a parent, I understand.
Yeah,
Two children?
two kids.
How old are your kids now?
They don't seem like kids anymore now that they're 13 and 11. So it's,
Mhm.
pretty soon it'll be 14 and 12. And then, so it's amazing to see how quick that time goes.
From the experience you've had from this journey, from the ups, the downs, and seeing that, pushing through helped you to get to where you are right now, and you've already done some great things. What advice do you have for parents on how, some of the things that you've learned and you want to pass on to your children?
Well, I think life skills are so important that my kids aren't active in sports. It's not like I was a big athlete, but I always liked to play sports. But I feel you have to meet kids with where they're at and what their interests are. So during COVID, my kids took an interest in tie dye and making tie dye shirts. And then we just said, how about we make a business out of it? So they were able to design a logo for it, that we'd go get t-shirts. When it progressed, do you want to buy the cheaper t-shirt, or do you want to buy the more expensive one? It's a better quality, but we're not going to make as much money. Okay, now we've got the orders. Now we've got to go to the post office. So now you've got to learn how to to send a package. And I'm glad I was able to teach them those basic skills of entrepreneurship. Now my son really is into cooking, and we made a little makeshift cookbook. And from filming it and putting those on TikTok, um, I feel that these are life skills that who knows if he wants to be a chef or a baker, but having some of those skills work across so many different things, and especially with new media and the fact that the new generation, social media is a big part of their lives, but can also be a big part of their lives professionally. So we often tell kids what not to post on social media, which is important, but it's also important to encourage them to post the right things as well.
And so, for parents out there that are listening, do you have any advice from them? Any advice for them in regards to how we're going to raise the level of thinking of these kids? Because you're doing
Yeah,
an
my biggest advice to parents, and this is something I try to be conscious of and aware of, is to try to do as many activities where you don't have to be on your phone. And I just, we can tell our kids to not be on devices as much, but then we're usually guilty of it as parents. I'm in that same boat as well. So I really enjoy cooking with my kids, as I've mentioned, but it's cool because we can put on some music in the background and I can listen to what they're listening to. So I'm aware of what they're listening to, but they can also listen to music that shaped me. And it doesn't all just have to be hip hop. I play a lot of Stevie Wonder, Motown, but it's also an opportunity where we're having that good family time, because sometimes if we're watching TV or a movie, you see it in a lot of different families, we're watching that, but everybody's on their own separate device, right? So I think it's important to create those moments where you're fully engaged in an activity, and that's what I try to cultivate.
I'm working on that too. It's
Mhm.
I bring that to my attention too when I'm on my device. I think a lot of us are working on that, and it's something that we should continue discussing and bringing it in the forefront, because they want our attention, they need
Mhm.
our attention, and a lot of bonding happens when we're actually living in that moment, right?
For
And
sure.
being present is so important, so important. I know we
Yeah.
didn't have these distractions before. Now we do, and we're going to just pivot. We're going to have to figure out how to work with it, because it's
Yeah.
definitely an advantage, but it could be a disadvantage if we don't use it wisely.
I agree.
Yeah. What message are you out there giving the youth? I mean, I enjoyed having you at our school. Anybody who'd like to see D.O. Gibson at their school, they need to contact you through your website. What's the
Yeah.
website?
Staydriven.com.
I love that. Oh, and D.O., tell them what that means. D.O.
Yeah, DO stands for Defy the Odds. And so I think my message, regardless if I'm talking about anti-bullying or Black history or leadership, is really it's about overcoming obstacles. And when I say stay driven, that goes along with that, because when I'm talking about Black history, I'm telling stories of people that had to go against immeasurable odds, but they had to be patient. They had to stick to their vision with it. And when I'm talking about bullying, it's the same thing. It's, as much as I'd like to say, I have a song called "I Stand Up" that you've heard.
I love
And
that.
I encourage kids to stand up, but it's a process. Bullying's not going to get better overnight. So it really is about that staying driven and sticking with it, um, to battle against those odds and adversity.
Love it. I love it. I love the message you're out there teaching our youth. I mean, as parents, um, you've got some great nuggets just to share with us, and staying driven and just saying, I'll stand up. I'll stand up. I'll
Mm,
fall, but I'll keep getting back up, right?
that's what it is.
And I think those are the ones that will achieve. And that's why you pushed forward, and that's why you are where you are today. And greater things are in store, even for days to come, for the future, I'm sure.
Well,
I
thank
thank you. I thank you so much for joining us on Parents Make a Difference. And I hope that the parents out there take some things that you've said to heart. And I know I've already learned some things from you. And I thank you. I thank you so much. And I hope that parents uh, check you out and bring you to their school so that
That'd be
you can
great.
speak to their kids. So that you can speak to their kids. Thank you so much. I appreciate your time, and I'm looking forward to see what else you put out there. I'm looking forward to looking at some of your books. You have 2 books written,
That's right. Yeah.
and what were? Can you just tell us the
Stay
name?
Driven, which is my book for youth, and then On This Grind, which is for entrepreneurs and people trying to get ahead in the music business and students.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you so much. Parents, remember, you make a difference.